Whether you like the current gunplay balance or not, undeniable is that with these changes, the bolt-action carbines have gone from good to great. Before update 5.2 and hotfix 5.22, bolt actions and anti-material rifles weren't really significantly threatened by SMGs, LMGs, or ARs in pretty much any situation. But the more medium-range orientated bolt-action carbines were, and thus have gotten a pretty large buff from the recent weapon balance changes. So for those looking for a taste of the old time to kill model, or simply some of the best weapons currently available, we're going to be taking a closer look at the bolt-action carbines in today's video. For those wondering, yes, the gameplay in today's video was recorded before the 5.2 update went live, but given that the weapons themselves haven't seen any changes, the only difference you'll be noticing between this gameplay and what you would experience on the battlefield when playing right now is that in those situations, you likely are going to be facing less incoming damage than I am in today's gameplay. So to start off with, let's jump into the close range end spectrum of the bolt-action carbines with the Commando Carbine. In terms of its stats, it comes in with a maximum damage of 60 and a minimum damage of 30, netting it a 2-shot body shot kill out to 50 meters, a 3-shot body shot kill between 50 and 75 meters, and a 4-shot body shot kill. From that point onwards, it comes with a 1-shot headshot potential up until and including 30 meters, and a fire rate at 97 rounds per minute, which is pretty high for the weapon class category. Its muzzle velocity is regrettably low at 350 meters per second, but its magazine size is pretty high at 8 shots available. In terms of the specialization choices, as with all of the bolt-action carbines, there isn't necessarily one way which is most definitely the only option you should be going for, but I do have my personal preferences and thus will recommend those accordingly. In terms of the Commando Carbine, I tentatively go for quick aim to improve the ADS speed by 33%, followed by the high velocity bullet specialization to bring up the muzzle velocity of the weapon to 400 meters per second, the machine bolt, which gives me a fire rate increase from 97 to 109 rounds per minute, and lastly, for a couple of funny hipfire headshot kills, the enhanced grip, which improves the hipfire accuracy of the weapon quite significantly. In terms of the role then of the Commando Carbine, it's a difficult one. While it does have the highest damage output in close quarter of all of the bolt-action carbines, it is really at those distances where it is of course most threatened by the likes of the SMGs and ARs. As is the case with pretty much all of the bolt-action carbines, they are not competitive in terms of raw time to kill when body shotting targets at pretty much any engagement distance, with a few exceptions, and that hasn't really changed substantially with the 5.2 update, with, as mentioned, some key exceptions. At long ranges in turn, of course you simply don't have the damage output to realistically take out a target that doesn't just simply refuse to shoot back or to move behind cover, when it comes at least to the Commando Carbine. And the low muzzle velocity makes hitting moving targets very difficult at those longer distances. Thus, mostly with this weapon, you're confined to close medium ranges, while going up against the likes of the SCG or ZK3A3 has always been a difficult task. With update 5.2, the competition now requires significantly more shots, and things have definitely gotten noticeably easier. Thus, at medium range, you can actually compete with most lower fire rate SMGs, even in terms of body shot raw time to kill, at least before you hit your 3-shot kill in the case of the Commando Carbine. But as of course with all of the bolt-action carbines, the true strength of them lies in their ability to 1-shot headshot targets, essentially removing any discussion of time to kill because you're insta-deleting people off the map. The Commando here becomes really a true skill cannon, because while it has an amazing killing potential thanks to a relatively high magazine size with 8 or even 11 shots available depending on your specialization choices, and a decent fire rate at least compared to the other weapons in the class, its headshot range is of course limited to 30 meters. The best of the best will likely have no difficulty absolutely churning through enemies with this weapon, especially on flanks, but one mistake and you really don't have enough time to put down range a second shot and likely are dead. Thus, the Commando Carbine is very much before and even after these time to kill changes one of the hardest weapons to use in the game. The M28 then is a little bit more forgiving. With a maximum damage of 56 and a minimum damage of 40, it has a 2-shot body shot kill all the way out to 75 meters and a 3-shot body shot kill from that point onwards. Its 1-shot headshot potential is limited to sub 50 meters and its fire rate is somewhat reduced compared to the Commando Carbine at 87 rounds per minute. It has a much improved muzzle velocity compared to the Commando, however, at 500 meters per second, and a maximum magazine of 6 shots available. The specialization choices I personally recommend are quick aim, followed by custom stock for improved accuracy while moving, lightened stock for improved moving speed while aiming down sight, and lastly the machine bolt, bringing up your fire rate from 87 to 100 rounds per minute. I should note here, an alternative for your last option is improved grenades to do a little bit more damage against vehicle at the expense of a reduced blast radius and blast damage when using it against infantry, and that very much is also an option that makes sense, especially if you're going up against a lot of tanks when using this weapon. In terms of the role of the M28, it then sits, of course, between the very aggressive Commando Carbine and the more sniper-esque Jungle Carbine we'll be discussing in just a moment. It still is very much a close quarter medium range focused weapon, which performs best, unsurprisingly, between 30 and 50 meters, where the drop off on the SMG really starts hurting their damage model, especially now that we have the 5.2 update changes, and before bolt action rifles start to become too effective, and really the loss of your one-shot headshot or your two-shot body shot kill becomes too impactful on your time to kill. Much like the Commando then, the damage reductions to various automatic weapons really do help this weapon's lethality in 1v1 situations. As we will cover in just a bit, the headshot potential of this weapon is still very much the main focus, as is with the Commando Carbine, but I would like to note that the sub 75 meter two-shot body shot is by no means ineffective, especially when going up against moving targets at distance, where body shots usually are your better option because hitting headshots could become a little bit too difficult. The M28 con Tromboncino is probably the most flexible of the three weapons we'll be discussing today by a long shot. That's not only actually because it sits between the Commando and Jungle in terms of its fire rate, damage output and range potential, but also because of the specialization options it has, and of course the ability to do some pretty decent damage against vehicles with help of its attached grenade launcher, which even without the specialization upgrades is a viable anti-tank weapon, and the only, I believe, the medic has available in terms of its entire gadget and weapon selection. The last and undoubtedly the most popular then of the bolt action carbines is the Jungle Carbine. With a maximum damage of 56 and a minimum damage of 40, it has a two-shot body shot kill all the way out to 100 meters, from which point onwards it needs 3 shots. Its one-shot headshot potential is limited to sub 75 meters, and its fire rate of course is lower than the Commando or M28 at 83 rounds per minute. It does share the high muzzle velocity of the M28 though at 500 meters per second, and has a very large and generous magazine size at 10 shots available. In terms of the specialization options I personally would recommend, you can go either for the high velocity bullets or quick aim for your first choice, and then following that, likely slings and swivels and the machined bolt upgrade, which brings your fire rate up to 95 rounds per minute, are your best path of action. And lastly, just for the memes and the quick hipfire kills, the enhanced grip provides you with better hipfire accuracy. In terms of the role of the Jungle Carbine then, to me it is a firmly aggressive scout replacement. Instead of running as scout class with spotting orientated tools, you get access to health and smokes, which are just as beneficial to your team and frankly make you significantly harder to kill. You can really start encroaching on a sniper's territory with this weapon. Hunting them is kind of a specialization of this weapon in combination with the medic class, because if you get body shot by a sniper, you can pretty much instantly heal, and by the time they have time to put a second follow-up shot in you, likely you have enough health to survive even that. What really, of course, will surprise them then is when you turn around and headshot insta-give them the same way they were expecting to kill you in the first place. Now, what this weapon really isn't, however, is a bolt-action rifle for the medic. So if you're used to hanging back and taking out targets at long range as a non-aggressive bolt-action rifle user, as pretty much most snipers are, you likely won't find this weapon effective. Post 75 meters, a headshot will not suffice, and post 100 meters, you'll be requiring 3 shots to take out your target, which in most situations is not competitive. Thus, staying within your sub 100 meter engagement distance is absolutely what you should be aiming for. Much like with the M28, running with your team and taking care of long range threats that they're facing is the best way to get performance out of this weapon and out of your class as medic, providing health, revives, and of course smokes for your team to advance with. Ideally, if you're going for the headshot kills, you want to really be between 50 and 75 meters, where you can usually fall back behind cover if you're being attacked by an STG user, for example, but can still insta-give anyone as long as you put a headshot in them. Higher muzzle velocity means that moving targets at range aren't that difficult actually, and with the help of your sub 100 meter 2-shot body shot kill are quite accessible. But as previously mentioned, if you want to go beyond that, really you shouldn't be using a bolt action carbine and instead should really switch to a bolt action rifle. A note on strategy when using the bolt action carbines to round this video off then. The weapons require some good positioning, good target prioritization, excellent accuracy and trigger discipline. Not a group of things I can, even as somewhat above average player, claim to have remotely mastered. While that makes these weapons truly difficult to use, sometimes even frustrating, it also makes them extremely satisfying and most importantly actually makes you a better player. Training with these weapons is something that will improve, in my opinion, some of the most fundamental FPS skills, and mastering them simply makes you a better player, which in my opinion is a reward in its own right, besides their already very high effectiveness on the battlefield. Now don't get me wrong, I like the STG and similar easy to use, low recoil weapons as much as the next guy. But using a weapon such as that, especially with the recent changes to recoil which make it essentially non-existent, is as simple as making sure you're at the right engagement distance, moving your crosshair roughly over the target and hitting your trigger button. A little bit of recoil control and really there's nothing stopping you from taking out a target other than maybe you engaging the target at the wrong engagement distance. A little bit more is required if you want to be effective with the bolt action carbines, but you'll be more effective with them, my personal opinion, than you will be with most of the other weapons, as you'll have a far more flexible, that is range flexible weapon than say something like an AR, SMG or LMG. Now you are going to want to make individual shots count with this weapon. You're going to want to prioritize accuracy over firing. Make sure you're aware of your position, who has visibility on it and what the likely threats are. Can you easily be flanked by SMGs? Do half the enemy snipers have direct visibility on your position? Target prioritization is as simple as who is going to shoot at me next and what weapon do they have. Are they dangerous to me at the range I'm engaging them? And as last tip, I'd also point out that you have a sidearm, and much like when you're using a bolt action rifle, you really shouldn't be shy to switch to it to either finish off a target or to take on extreme close quarter threats. With the recent 5.2 changes and 5.22 hotfix, revolvers and close quarter oriented pistols are as good as they ever are, and frankly usually are a better option for taking on close quarter targets than hoping that your opponent either misses so many shots that you can get 2 body shots in them or that you get a lucky headshot kill. So in summary, the bolt action carbines may not be as easy as hip firing everybody down with an SMG in close quarter. But they also don't leave you completely helpless, as most automatic weapons currently do, as soon as you leave the close quarter safety of a capture point and try to move on to the next. In the right hands, these weapons are both a lethal choice for a lone wolf or a good addition to a balanced squad, and if you can put in the time to get good with them and master them, as I have all 3 of them, they are without a shadow of a doubt some of the best weapons that the medic class has to offer. But that pretty much wraps it up for the bolt action carbines. Feel free to share your own experiences with them down below. If you enjoyed the video, a rating would be much appreciated. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.